Welcome to this edition of DIY3DTech.com. In this episode, we're going to take a look at printing this. So, as you remember in the last episode, we took a design which I created for a Lysol container to hold it to a pegboard, and I converted it from the design I used and created on laser to that of a 3D printed object to show you guys how you could take a laser object and convert it for 3D printing. So, but before we get into talking about this a little bit more, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the time lapse of this being printed. I printed this at about 40% infill. It was a 13-hour print, but we'll definitely shorten up the time lapse far greater than that. And then let's meet over back at the bench over there, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more. So let's cut over to a time lapse. Okay, welcome back to the bench. So we've taken it off the printer and here it is. So it came out pretty good. We did experience a little bit of warping along here. I did print this in PLA. Bed temperature of 60 degrees C, hot end temperature I think around 210. I beef it up a little bit for the Wanhouse temperature issues. Again, printed no supports. The little bit of roughness here that I haven't cleaned up yet, but I will. And you can see, you probably saw in the time lapse, especially as it crossed this boundary here, how interesting it got between going back and forth between these two areas. And again, this entire circle was printed with no support. So we got the Lysol container here, and again, it sits in there. Now, one of the things I do want to mention that I realized after I printed this, and in this case, it's not a huge issue, but it's a little bit, the opening is a little bit big, because one of the things for the kerf of the laser, I left about an extra 0.5 millimeter or so I'd have a little playroom, and you can kind of see this here, and so not a big deal, but just something to keep in mind in converting a laser created object, is if there are holes or something, that they might be a little bit bigger because the designer may have taken into account the kerf of the laser. But this actually, I think, turns out to be a good thing with this design, because you know, if you get a little bit larger vendor container or something like that, you know, it'll still fit, or if they change it a little bit, you don't have to go back through a 13-hour print. So anyways, all that worked out pretty good. The strength of it is very strong. I printed this again at a 40% infill, which maybe was a little bit overkill. You know, 30% might have did the trick. Again, this piece down here, which I talked about in the first video about this for structural support, I think was a very good idea. You know, because I played around a little bit with this off camera, and so it definitely does take the downward torque of closing this top, because this is where the real torque's going to be. So you open this up, you take your wipe out, you close this, you're going to press down upon this, and so what happens is the force is going to hit this bottom piece, which is then going to be transferred to these two clips to the pegboard, right? So you want this to be very strong, and with this this design, it pretty much gives you that connection between the back and the sides, and actually acts, I think, like a little bit of a fillet. I'll put in a as it was printing, you can kind of see, as I mentioned in the first one, the way that the structure forms in 3D printing. I think it adds some strength to it. I think everything else is pretty much the same. You can see on the P, it's lifted a little bit of the what was printed on there before for some reason, sort of like silly putty, but that's kind of interesting. But everything else seemed to print good. I'm also happy with my decision to use the blocks for the sides rather than the original ones, because one of the things that I did off camera is I went into this and I looked at the structure inside after I joined with the original blocks, and it was simply like you fingered together two pieces like if it were laser joined, and I think that would have been created maybe additional print time and probably reduced strength, where with this, after I did the rectangle in here, it just created one solid manifold, so or surface. So I think that came out very good. So if you notice, I've had pictures up here to the side of it on the board, so it's come out pretty good. Very happy with it. I'll put this up on Thingiverse. I think it's worthwhile. So don't forget, if you're looking at doing something like this, be up there. Also, subscribe. The subscribe button will be coming up. Don't forget, thumbs up, and then Swag Shop up in the corner. So helps us out all the way around. And hey, if you found this interesting, or if you have other uses for this, because the other thing I was thinking is, what about if I put holes down here for hooks or something? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And hey, we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.
Please click like below and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date on all of our projects.